In the depth of winter, I finally learned that within myself lay an invincible summer. Hi, this is Greg Starkman with Platinum Method Coaching. In today's installment of your Blueprint for Success, we're going to discuss how to make your resume bulletproof. Why is it so hard to get a response from your resume? And what can you do about it? Is there anything more frustrating or confusing than writing a resume? You spend hours perfecting every word, agonizing over what to include, and trying to decipher all the conflicting advice you've had from friends, family, web articles, and the so-called experts, most of whom don't even agree. And when you're finally done, you send off your resume for that perfect job, and what do you hear back? Crickets. No response. No one calls. No one writes. And you're left wondering, what's wrong with me? The good news is that you're not the problem. The problem is the system. And the fact is that you don't understand it yet. You haven't yet had a peek behind the curtains to understand how hiring decisions are actually made. And once you understand that, everything else will fall into place. You'll be able to easily write a resume that gets a response. And that's true no matter what your level, background, or industry. So I'd like to begin today by trying to give you a clear picture of exactly why it's so difficult to get a response to your applications and exactly what you need to do to catapult your resume into the lead. The best candidates are not the ones who get hired. I've been interviewing people for over 25 years. Before becoming a coach, I interviewed hundreds of people, and I don't fool myself that I always found the best candidate. What I found were the candidates with the best resumes. They didn't necessarily have the strongest backgrounds. They didn't always have the perfect experience. But they did know how to present their resumes in order to do two things. And the first was to pass the automated screening systems, or robots. And the second is to appeal directly to the concerns of the hiring manager. Let's meet a hiring manager, and I'll show you what I mean. Ed is an investment manager who's been given permission to hire a dedicated social media manager. He definitely wants to make the right decision. After all, his team is understaffed, his workload keeps mounting. He's very excited about getting some much-needed help. But as he starts to wade through the resumes, another possibility occurs to him. What if I make the wrong choice? It's happened before. It wouldn't be the first time that a seemingly wonderful candidate turned out to be underqualified, or worse yet, lazy. And Ed knows that if he makes a mistake, he'll fall even further behind, and his life will get harder, not easier. And he certainly doesn't relish explaining to his bosses why the new social media manager hasn't had any impact on sales. So he's nervous, and he doesn't see any way to sort out the good candidates from the bad. All resumes look pretty much alike: bland, repetitive, and conformist. There are a lot of dynamic self-starters and highly motivated leaders. But these are generalities that tell Ed nothing. The problem is that most resumes don't represent the living, breathing person who wrote them. Instead of expressing skills and individuality and explaining the great things the person has done, they're simply a dull recitation of standard phrases and pat descriptions. This does nothing to help Ed to decide who's going to fit into his company. And therein lies the answer to getting Ed's attention and creating a living, breathing resume that screams, "Hire me!" You need to tell him about yourself in an interesting way. You need to bring yourself alive on the page and make him curious to meet you. In other words, you need to tell Ed a story. Since the beginning of time, humans have enjoyed stories. Stories make us feel a sense of the world. We listen as the story begins, we follow it through the middle, and we feel the satisfaction when we reach the resolution. A good story is both compelling and memorable. But obviously, you can't tell just any story. Like the one about New Year's Eve in Las Vegas, probably not going to help you a lot. Anyway, stories you tell on your resume must show Ed that you've solved problems in the past, and the problems you've solved are similar to the ones he's facing. If you do that, why wouldn't he interview you? The biggest challenge is knowing what stories to include and what to leave out. You don't want your resume to read like War and Peace, after all. But both these challenges get much easier when we stop making one simple, all-too-common mistake. The mistake is believing that the resume is all about us. Wait, what am I saying? Of course your resume should be about you. Well, actually, no. Your resume should be all about one person, the hiring manager. Or rather, it should be about providing all the information he or she needs to make their decision. He needs to find a candidate who can solve his problems and maximize his opportunities. He'll respond immediately to resumes that address his key concerns and offer the promise of making big improvements to his current situation. He wouldn't even hesitate. Mary is the perfect candidate, so why doesn't Ed interview her? Mary's 25 and has been working on social media marketing for the last few years. It's only part of her current job, but she'd like to make it full-time. She's excited when she sees the opportunity in the posting for Ed's vacancy because she has all the skills he's looking for. So she quickly sends off a copy of her resume without any edits because she wants to be first in line for the job. Then she waits and waits. There are those crickets again. Eventually she tries phoning, but she's told by HR that they've already notified all the candidates that they're going to be interviewing, and she's not among them. What went wrong? Mary would have solved all of Ed's problems. She's smart, hardworking, creative, and really good at what she does. She would have whipped his social media marketing processes into shape within 2 months, and sales would have grown as a direct result. The problem is, her resume didn't show Ed any of that. It didn't tell him a powerful story that addressed his needs. When he reviewed it, he saw an executive assistant, not a go-getting social media manager. It told a chronological story of Mary's career to date, including the parts of her current job that don't relate to social media or marketing. In fact, as he only had time to skim the resume to sort them into yes and no, he didn't even notice she had responsibility for social media in her current job. The moral of the story is that, when it comes to resume writing, the most important person is not you. It's the hiring manager. So put yourself in the hiring manager's shoes. You know you want to tell them a story with your resume, but which one? There are many different stories you could tell about your career, and you don't have room to tell them all in one resume. The answer is you must tell the story that resonates most with the hiring manager. And that will be the one that directly addresses his needs, concerns, his work problems, and his crisis. This means you need to forget for a little while about yourself and focus on the needs of your target hiring manager. To do this, picture the hiring manager at your ideal company. Give him a name. What are his fears, concerns, hopes, wishes? What kind of candidate would be an ideal fit for him? What experience is important? What skills matter most? What character traits will he value? Understand the answers to these questions, and you'll appeal to the hiring manager and the types of companies that you want to work for. The question is what to include and what to omit becomes much easier to answer. Just keep his needs and concerns in mind, and you won't need to worry about writing hypey phrases like self-motivated self-starter, because you'll simply focus on the hiring manager and the things he needs to know. There's no need for a lot of self-promotion. Here's the first step. To prepare for what you're going to learn, you need to take stock of where you are now. Imagine you're in Ed's shoes and take a long, hard look at your resume. Go through the document with a highlighter pen and mark any place where you use a common resume phrase like accomplished manager or highly motivated self-starter. This pinpoints the problem areas right up front. Then ask yourself these questions. Is it designed to appeal to Ed, to address his concerns and make him excited about talking to you? Does it look and sound different from other resumes you've seen? If you were in Ed's shoes, would you be itching to set up an interview after having read your resume? If the answer to any of these questions is no, don't worry. Just make notes about the weaknesses for now. Also, be sure to note anything that you think doesn't work well. This might be a particular phrase or the way you've communicated your skill set or a particular powerful accomplishment you've described. Beating the robots. I want to show you how to get past the automated screening systems that have been set up to screen you out and to find the candidate with all the right qualifications. This won't be the usual resume writing advice about choosing power words or beginning with an objective. This is the high-octane stuff that once you understand and apply it will allow you to take your career to the next level. If you've ever applied for a job online, you've probably come across these automated resume screening systems where you have to enter in all your details into a web form and perhaps answer some job-related questions. Or maybe you know when you send a resume by mail, it's often stored in a computer that would be retrieving it using a keyword search. But you might not understand exactly how each of these systems work. How does a resume screening system work? We talk about this in a separate section called Beating the Robots, but I want to go over it again here briefly. There are many different systems, but they all work on the same basic principles. The first and most important to understand is keyword searches. When you upload your resume into a system, or when a recruiter uploads a resume you sent by email, it's scanned for keywords relating to the open position. These keywords are programmed in by a recruiter or HR rep. For example, Ed may tell the system to look for resumes containing the words social media, Facebook, Twitter, Google, or content marketing, or maybe blog. If your resume contains these keywords, you pass to the next phase. In some cases, it means it arrives at the recruiter's inbox for review. In other cases, the system also uses pre-programmed questions to further filter the resumes. So you may be asked to answer questions such as, how many years of social media marketing experience do you have? As the recruiter or hiring manager, I want to find the very best person for the job. But perhaps the very best person forgot to include the words content marketing on their resume. Despite the fact that she may have the required experience, she won't make it past my filter and therefore lose out. Now, despite their imperfections, robots or resume screening systems are here to stay. So what can you do? Well, there's a surprisingly easy answer. Think of your resume as the key to a door, and the job is the door that needs to be unlocked. Your resume is not the key that will unlock every door. You may have 100 keys to unlock one door. Which key do you use? Up until now, you've been hoping your favorite key will open the door to your interview to your ideal job. But what if I told you you could have a special key made to open just that door? You'd probably ask how you could do this, as you don't have the specifications to make that key. But the reality is you do. In most cases, your employer is telling you everything you need to know about how to open that door. It's right there in the job description. Take the job posting, highlight all the skills and qualifications, as well as the important job responsibilities, and then use the words as my keywords. Each one will be weighted differently depending on importance, and some are optional rather than mandatory, but they can all be found right there in the job description. You may recall we worked about word clouds and using legendaryresumes.com to create a word cloud of your resume. Well, you should also do one of the job description, and you can see if there's a fit. Once you do that, you'll gain an understanding to see if you would hire yourself. If you put the two word clouds together, you're going to see everything they're looking for and everything you're offering. And it's going to give you a pretty clear picture that, wow, I have what they're looking for, or, holy smokes, I have a lot of great skills, but that's not what they want. So this means the secret to beating the systems is simply learn as much as you can about the job opportunity, and then check your resume, make sure you've included these keywords, as many as possible. If you're missing some, look for places to insert them. It doesn't matter what order you place them in, or where they appear on your resume, as long as they're in there. Adapt your resume each time you apply, and you'll beat the automated systems and instantly increase the number of interviews you get. So if your resume is a story, the biggest challenge becomes knowing which stories to include and which to leave out. Okay, now I'd like to talk about, maybe give you a few tips on certain skills that you should be including in there. So I'm going to give you 10 tips right now, and see what works best for you, or what you haven't been doing maybe. Okay, the first tip is to highlight your transferable skills. Employers are looking for specific experience and qualifications, but they're also looking for general skills like communication, flexibility, and teamwork. Your resume should try to highlight these kinds of transferable skill sets, as well as your specific work experience. If you've been commended by previous employers for resourcefulness, learning quickly, and providing great service, mention this on your resume, because once again, now this is going to go back to, we're telling the story. We want to put these things in there so we have a compelling story. Now, we need the keywords just to get past the robots, but we also need the story, because if we do get past the robots, we still want someone, an actual human, to look at this, and we want them to say, hey, I want to interview this person. The next way to do that is put your vital information near the top. In general, recruiters read about the first third of your resume and glance over the rest. Then they will make a snap decision as to whether to examine your application in more detail or to move on to the next one. That's why any really important information needs to be near the top. What are the main things that a recruiter is looking for? Can they easily be seen? Sometimes a vital piece of information may be towards the end. For example, one of your early jobs contained a very relevant piece of experience. If so, you need to add a brief summary near the top mentioning that you have this experience. Don't wait for them to get to the bottom, because they may never get there and see that piece of information. Another tip is to check your resume on screen and on paper. Most resume submissions are fully electronic these days, so you need to ensure that they're easy to read on a computer screen. Documents can look very different on different computers. Send your resume to a friend and have them look at it on their computer. Your resume may still get printed out and placed on someone's desk, but print out your own copy before submission and check it out. Make sure it looks the way that you had intended and that it doesn't exceed the recommended page count or have anything weird going on with formatting, because that can happen. Next step is don't include any "well, duh" statements. For example, references available on request. Available for immediate interview. You may have been taught to include these generic phrases, but they don't actually add anything to your resume. For example, recruiters assume that you have all the references and you're going to attend an interview. What other generic phrases do you have on your resume? Go through your resume and delete anything that's obvious. Instead, use that space to include some detail about yourself that's going to make you more interesting, and tell them why you are a great candidate. Next point is make your resume readable for non-experts. Not everyone who handles your resume is going to be an expert in the field. In fact, the first person who sees it will probably be an HR person with no real experience in your practical field. Use straightforward language as much as possible. You can quickly test the readability of your resume by getting a friend or relative to read it and see if they understand it. Do this even if you're sure an industry expert will be reading your resume. People have very little time to read documents like this, so you need to be clear, and precise English will be preferred. Don't use dense shop talk. Zoom in on relevant experience. Your resume needs to establish you as a candidate with the right set of skills to do the job. Experience that's relevant to the job needs to be in front and center. For example, if you're applying for an IT role, your employment history needs to highlight any IT experience you have. Talk about how you had to use Microsoft Office or CRM before you talk about anything else. Even if the relevant experience was only a small part of your job, you can still highlight it. Relevant experience is what the recruiter is really interested in, so make sure it's prominent in your resume. Make it clear if you've ever been promoted. A promotion is worth bragging about, and it shows that your old boss really believed in you. However, the structure of the employment history can sometimes obscure your job progression. If you have enough space, it's okay to list 2 separate jobs in your employment history, one before your promotion and one after. If not, list the more senior job and add a bullet point about your promotion. For example, you may want to try, hired as a cashier, promoted to duty manager after 6 months. Here's a small point but an important one. Write numbers in the correct format. Number formatting may seem small, but it can make a big difference between success and failure. The general rule is spelling the numbers 1 through 9 and using numerals for 10 or higher. When writing a sentence starting with a number, spell it out. In a list of numbers, use numerals. The most important thing, however, is to be consistent. It looks bad when you mix styles, for example, using the number 9 and then writing out the word 5. Make sure keywords appear in your resume. We've already talked about this, but it's great to highlight it once again. It's not only about beating the robots, but when you apply for a job, think about how you're going to get through the computer stage, and then, once a real person reads it, how it's going to appeal to them. Most of the keywords, as we know, they appear in the job ad itself. Your essential skills, necessary experience sections, often a list of just keywords. However, make sure you insert them naturally. Your resume is going to also be read by a human at some point, so they need to be able to make sense of it. Go through your resume. Find out the best place to place a keyword. For example, Excel is one of the keywords that lines up in your employment. Use several software systems. Change to read, use Excel and several other software systems. But also make sure you research which keywords to use before writing your resume. What works for one company doesn't necessarily work for another company, and you need to know that before you hand in your resume. Next point, obvious, but people still don't do it. Proofread, proofread, and proofread again. You only get one chance to make a first impression. A small error in your resume or cover letter can say to the recruiter that you're sloppy and have low attention to detail. Use proofreading tools to help. Grammarly is used by many professional writers to fine-tune their content and eliminate minor grammatical errors. Remember, no spell checker or proofreading tool can spot a factual error. If you say you graduated on February 30th, or you left your last job in 2028, you're going to look silly. You have to examine that on your resume, every fine detail before you submit it. Ideally, get someone else to help you and take a look at it. Last point I want to mention now is be objective about what to include. You may have to cut things out of your resume to make everything fit, but what should go? The answer is anything that's not directly relevant to the job for which you're applying. That means leaving out some information that you're proud of, or maybe that you'd like the recruiter to know. But be ruthless. Go through every line and ask, is this essential for this application? If you can't be sure it's essential or helpful, consider cutting it out. Okay, now with regard to resume formats, I recommend two types. Both have a proven record, and both you've probably seen before, at least the first. The first is the Harvard Business School recommended format. It's traditional, simple, and to the point. It's very sparse. You have date, activity, where and when, where you did it. The second is more contemporary. It allows you to put in more information, but more importantly, it allows you to highlight your big 6 core skills, which allows you to frame your interview or showcase your strengths. The examples I provide, well, in general, I recommend you stick to one page. But if you have significant and interesting experience that you want to use to capture the interviewer's attention, feel free to go to a second page. Remember, a resume is not a list of everything you ever did. It's a story that's an outline to be used as a springboard to get the interviewer to allow you to talk about your strengths. So I'm going to go through this real quick. You probably know this, but just step by step, what do we do for writing our resume? Step number 1, open the appropriate template in a preferred word processing software. And use something mainstream because you want to make sure how your resume looks to you is how it will look to the recruiter. So use Word, use Pages on a Mac, use Google Docs, one of those. Most common file translation issues are placement of lines and spacing issues, and they're easy to fix. But write in your name, your credentials, your contact information. If you have a customized LinkedIn address, include that too, and make sure you have it as a link. We suggest you use a template without a physical address, unless your phone number does not indicate that you're a local candidate. Next, build it around your 6 big skills. Okay, this is going to be the core of what we're doing. And once again, we want this to frame the interview. We want to lead the interviewer by always focusing on these big 6 skills. Excuse me. Note that the skills listed higher in the job description have priority. Blend in the desired skills with your personal specialties or interests to perfect these big 6 skills. You can modify the phrasing later, and it depends on the job you're applying for. But these skills, once again, that are modified, they should be modified to mirror what's listed in the job description. Next is enter your job titles, dates, and organization name. Remember, if you're promoted within the organization, or you have a cluster of consulting or temporary roles, group these under one heading. Describe each organization. Focus on including the size of the organization, number of employees, revenue, things of that nature. Major brands are great, their partners, customers, suppliers, and the details that help the reader visualize what the organization does. One trick is to reflect the journalistic questions: who, what, where. If you need to make estimates, that's okay. Use the tilde sign. But I would put a link in there to the company. Even if you worked for IBM or one of the large companies, most recruiters obviously are going to know who that is. But put in a link. It's much more impressive, and a lot of times they are going to click on it. And once again, put in a link for your school as well. Put in a link for your LinkedIn page. You want to have these links in there because everything nowadays is electronic anyway. So you want to make their lives easier. Once again, we're thinking about the hiring manager. How can you help them? Well, if they just have to click on something to get a lot more information, that's a much better way than you trying to put it in yourself. Next, you want to describe each job role. Very generally describe your responsibilities or functions. If possible, use it as an opportunity to show that you're performing duties that will either help you do your target job better, or they're directly related, shows you already know what you're doing. If you need ideas, once again, go to the job description for each job title. See how organizations tend to describe that role. Save the high-impact details for the body bullet points. Next, build in your education and extras. Remember, once again, to use those links. Use the formats that I've talked about. They're 2 of the best that are out there. Make sure that you focus on keeping the section relevant to the position that you're targeting. For example, a resume isn't a place to tell your whole life story. It's a tool to help you create and unlock doors for the future. So you need to only put in the stuff that matters. For example, unless, of course, you have something that's exceptionally interesting. I had the pleasure of playing with Joe Perry from Aerosmith on one occasion. It has nothing to do with the job, but if they know who he is or have any interest in music, that is certain to be a conversation starter. So make sure you get those extras in there. Make sure, once again, you want anything that they're going to consider really interesting. Oh, wow, that's great. Tell me about that. That's what you want. Next, write in a smart summary. Use the structures that I've described for your skills, anything like that. Make sure that they understand that you're a good candidate for this position. For example, financial professional or fundraising expert, the kinds of phrases you want to include here. Follow the rest and make sure to integrate keywords into your summary everywhere you go. Now, of course, you want to proofread and polish. She understood your goal here is 0 mistakes in your resume. I've seen so many mistakes in resumes over the years that I've lost track. Sometimes it's actually pretty funny. But it's not going to get you an interview. Hiring managers are likely to hold punctuation and grammatical errors against you, so take time, proofread carefully, make sure you get it. Finally, make sure to include the big platinum words, the impact words. I don't want to go through this whole thing, but I'm going to give you some ideas here. I'm going to give you 6 categories of words. I'm going to read them off really quick. But I want you to think about it when you're looking for a verb to describe what you do, to make sure you use power words. For example, the categories you should be thinking about are achievement, gave opinion, made better, managed, or other. An example of a few achievement words would be accomplished, awarded, completed, exceeded, outperformed. Some gave opinion words might be advised, consulted, examined, quantified, recommended. Some made words are authored, created, defined, designed, developed, engineered, implemented, innovated. Some made better description words are expanded, improved, increased, maximized, modernized, re-engineered, reorganized. Some managed words, chaired, co-chaired, coached, led, managed, mentored, orchestrated, organized, produced, supervised. And then some other words you might think about are acquired, assisted, forecasted, marketed, monitored, organized, planned, prepared. I mean, there's a ton of them, and you can email me, and I'm happy to give you a whole list. I don't want to spend the whole time talking about them. For the Platinum Power Words, you may want to think about them by category, or this is one way I think about them. There are leadership words, there are communication words, research words like clarified, collected, inspected, design words, teaching words, finance or accounting words, creative words, assisted words, administrative words. These are categories, and once again, let's talk about one of them. Finance and accounting. There are going to be certain words that are associated with that industry, and these are the type of words that you need to be using. Once again, the buzzwords. Maybe like allocated, analyzed, assessed, audited, balanced, forecasted, planned, projected, researched. So know what your field is and which are the words that are common there that you should be using. Now I want to change gears a little. Let's talk about making sure you say things the proper way or the best way to say things. I'll give you a couple of examples here. Some samples of success language. Ultimately having the impact of, leading to, created the first, changed the way, was adopted across the organization. Now here's some good resume phrasing. Now you may naturally say this, I helped develop an iOS application for a group of scientists. But a better way you could say it on your resume would be, collaborated with the team of X to develop iOS app for some group or organization which was successfully launched and downloaded to XX company in the first 6 months. Another one is, I raised $5,000 for disaster relief fund. On a resume, it might be better to try saying, spearheaded a $5,000 fundraising effort to assist victims of X disaster by promoting the message through something and something and making some direct appeals to X amount of potential donors. Here's one more example. You might say, I did original research on the effect of gender in hiring decisions. But on your resume you can say, performed original research on the effect of gender in hiring decisions by collecting and analyzing and summarizing X data points from X source of data to assist research led by Dr. Y at some institution. So those are just a few examples. Think about how you say things, because sometimes, while you want to be succinct, sometimes a few more words to describe it goes a long way toward getting your message across. Now let's talk about position titles. Consider the following titles on your resume if you founded an organization, a charity, or club, and were not given an official title for the job. Charity or student clubs that you're active with. Think of titles like advisor, analyst, assist, associate, board member, board advisor, CEO, managing director, panel judge, portfolio manager, professor, vice president, CFO, COO, consultant, guest lecturer, general partner, head of, or lecturer. Also, the word senior can be added to the beginning of many titles. Okay, now I want to talk about some job-generating strategies, and I'm going to give you two different categories. The first is unconventional but effective sourcing strategies, and the second will be more traditional job search strategies. Now, when you're on the hunt for a job, it can feel like there are no opportunities out there, when in reality, there could be hundreds of opportunities waiting to be uncovered. So here are a couple of strategies you can use to find openings that are not necessarily the first ones that would come to mind or people are actively using. You should target professionals for quick chats. After you build your resume and LinkedIn profile, start proactively networking to find opportunities for informal chats. Remember the methodologies: connect, chat, meet, and then mushroom. And the superstar networkers will leverage some sort of CRM tool like Podio to stay on top of their contacts. Based on experimental studies done, around 20% of LinkedIn requests will, after chat requests are sent, result in a conversation. So you need to target at least 50 or 60 professionals. But don't forget to ask for informational interviews with top executives. Tell them that you don't expect them to have a job or even know of a job. You merely want advice as to what they would do if they were in your shoes. More often than not, they're actually happy to help. Okay, connect with the news to search for your job. Use local business journals and Google alerts to build an understanding of major changes in your work area, maybe in your city, your industry, or a job function. When you see a major change, imagine how that change is going to impact the firm in your target area, and you could even propose a solution to help them meet their needs. It's a solid way to connect with people at those firms, request informal chats, and share your solutions with them. Next, start working on your personal network, but focus on the weak ties. And what I mean by this is, next time you start to call your mom and ask her what she knows or who she knows and how she could help with your job hunt, consider calling your second cousin instead. Researchers at Stanford have shown that networks of those that are closest to you, to be your parents, your siblings, your best friends, are likely to be redundant, meaning you already know a high percentage of those people. However, it's likely that someone more loosely connected to you, like a neighbor or second cousin, might have a more unique network and one that's more valuable to you in your job search. Next, drop off resumes with ideal firms, even if no openings are listed. It's a simple strategy for outgoing people. Just drop by the office, meet a few people. Who knows? You might even run into the CEO in an elevator. This is most likely to be successful when you're targeting smaller or medium-sized firms. Connect with recruiters at high-growth companies. A quick internet search with terms like fastest-growing companies in X industry will often yield a list of business media that will help you identify companies that are growing and thus likely to be hiring. Once you have the list, use LinkedIn to target a few people at the firm and send them a connection request. Alternatively, you can find other ways to network with people like this, direct email connections or attending one of their product demonstrations. Another idea is propose a mini consulting project to a few ideal firms. If you're truly confident in your abilities to work alone and make an impact, and you have a connection with the target firm, it's a good idea to propose a mini consulting project for the firm. This is especially effective with startups or small to minimal-sized firms. For example, if you're a Java engineer, offer to build them a cool little web application to show them your skills. You may not get paid, but you'll build your portfolio and maybe even get a great job. Another idea is reach out to former professors for job leads. It's simple, but think about professors who are most connected to the business community and reach out to them. Oftentimes, especially if they consult for non-academic organizations, employers will ask these professors for connections to exceptional students. Now, just very quickly, we'll go over a couple of traditional methods for job sourcing. Now, you want to use internet-based job boards, target trade journals, business journals, unique job boards. Connect with alumni through LinkedIn or the university. Attend meetups and other professional events. Build a list of target firms and visit their career page. Research rotational programs for opportunities with larger firms. Work with headhunters, recruiting agencies. Or volunteer somewhere that makes sense. Volunteering can yield skills and contacts, especially if you're in the nonprofit world. Volunteering can be a very good use of your time. Try to target organizations that have solid funding, as they're more likely to hire you. So that's enough ideas for now. So this is Greg from Platinum Method Coaching. I hope this was helpful. Remember, life is a daring adventure or nothing. If you have any questions about resumes or career strategies, call me today at 800-217-7113 or take the first step to bring your life into balance. You can also email me at greg@platinummethod.coaching.com or go to the website, platinummethod.coaching.com, or follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or any of your other favorite social media platforms. Till next time, remember, a pessimist sees difficulty in every opportunity. An optimist sees opportunity in every difficulty. So find your passion and live life in your terms. Make it a great day.